It's 4 o'clock on a Wednesday. Had to think about it though. And hope you're ready for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Woohoo! With me in focus. Yeah, baby. There we are. A little focus. Thank you, fake audience. And thank you, fake band. Let's see who is in the house, because today we are going to talk about some production tips for you guys. Said that in my best radio voice. Hello. Woo, look at this. A lot of people in there. We've got Dan Weber. Oh, man. We've got Dan Weber. Let's see. Who else? Ian Shortle. Kristen Knight. Third like. Yes. Hit that like button. We like the like. Who else do we have? Just a lot of activity from those guys. Jesse J. Peck, Martin Gravel, Akira Canyon, Dean Turner, Darren Fletcher, Il Raso Emil, Andre Stepanian. Hello, everybody. I've got to be super careful today. I had a nosebleed a couple days ago, and it just came back. I was blowing my nose about 10, 15 minutes ago, and it came back, and it was a gusher. So if you see blood dripping down my face, my nose is itching. I'm sure it's the, whatever it is, not an artery, a capillary or something trying to, heal up there. Darren Fletcher, let's see, who else do we have? Ewert Williams, Anna Weatherup. Hello, Anna. Jim Stamper, People of Taxi. Daryl Berman, John Hope. Jan Weilage, hello. Heidi Owen, Spiritual. All right, so good to see you guys. Glad everybody enjoyed that episode on Monday. I was absolutely blown away by some of those country songs that we heard. Just incredibly good. Hello, Mark Reel. How are you? Pierre Venio. Earlier today, I was in an A&R meeting with like 4 people, and we were going over some stuff. We ran some listings for Christmas music and New Year's music, and we're putting together a compilation and sending it out to libraries. The libraries have been liking the compilations that we're sending out and signing some people. Hello, Delshawn Smiley. So we put together a Christmas compilation, and once again, I'd play you the stuff, but we don't have permission from the people who were on the thing to play it. Otherwise, I was going to play it today. Hello, Riney Bear. Hello, Bonzo. I was just absolutely blown away. Some of the most impressive stuff, not that much of it wasn't impressive, or maybe a lot of it was impressive, but I think there were 3 pieces that were kind of like crooner, classic Christmas crooner stuff that were just mind-blowingly good. There was another piece in there that was kind of like, who did Leader of the Pack? I know Ellie Greenwich wrote it, but not the Shirelles. Who did Leader of the Pack? Hello, Alex Dillon. That kind of stuff, kind of like an Ellie Greenwich kind of thing. Anyway, just the quality of the music that we're hearing from our members nowadays, it just keeps getting better, exponentially better, like every few months. Dan Fogelberg. Hello, Simon Burnham. The Shangri-Las, there you go. So that style, just really, really, really good stuff. But today, I was listening to some taxi submissions about, I don't know, maybe it was over the weekend, then I was listening to some more late the other night on my headphones in bed. And I was hearing stuff that was really good, but I think it's the producer in me is coming out now that I'm messing around with Logic, and I'm only like, I'm trying so hard not to even launch the program because I'm busy working on Taxi Road Rally stuff. By the way, Taxi Road Rally coming up November 6th, 7th, and 8th. the schedule is so close to being posted, but there's some technical issues that I need to talk to our technical director about before I can actually post the full schedule. And have I confirmed all the speakers? No, I haven't, but I know that the vast majority of them, in fact, will say yes. And I think now that, like, I'll do 15 minutes on Logic here or there, and I think it's got that producer part of my brain working again. So when I'm listening to Taxi member stuff sometimes, even stuff that was forwarded, I'm thinking, oh man, they missed an opportunity to do this or do that. And so I jotted down some notes. I can barely read my own writing, but I want to give you guys some production thoughts. Maybe you could call them tips, maybe you could call them tricks, but they're all production related. So that's what I'd like to do today. Hope you guys are into it. I'm trying to see what is super sad that Liz is talking about with Akira. I do not know. No idea. I can't find anything posted by Akira. I'm sure he's in there somewhere. Anyway, Darren Fletcher is already all about today's show. Oh, yeah, Eddie Van Halen. Man, it doesn't get any sadder than that, you know. But as I said, hello, JP. Welcome to the big show. Hope you had a chance to watch a replay of Monday's show. There is some really good country stuff in there. But yeah, Eddie Van Halen, you know, what a loss. The guy had a God-given talent for playing guitar. He was a true rock star. The interesting thing about Eddie, as saddened as I am that his family lost him, his friends lost him, and we've all lost him, is that dude lived like five lifetimes in one lifetime. He lived life to the fullest, you know, and he lived the dream. He got to be a rock star. He married America's sweetheart, Valerie Bertinelli. Sorry, that didn't go the distance, but he was just something, you know, and what a guitar player. Anyway, so yes, hello, Richard Carr. Hello, Brad Gray. He did change the play we played guitar. Somebody said the other day that he was the other Jimi Hendrix. I think Jimmy will always be in kind of a class by himself just because stylistically nobody ever really could even emulate what Jimmy did. It's like his brain was wired in a different way than everybody else's. I think that Eddie may have actually been technically better than Jimmy. And now I'm going to start a debate that will be better than the political debates we've been seeing. But, yeah, I would say Eddie was maybe more technical, but Jimmy's brain just worked in such a way that he did stuff that was so unexpected and so groundbreaking from a stylistic point of view that I think Jimmy will always remain in a class by himself. Anyway, so adios, R.I.P. Thanks for hanging out for 65 years, Eddie. You gave a lot of people a lot of thrilling work that we all appreciate. All right, so let's talk about some, and these are just random thoughts that I wrote down, and hopefully they'll help you guys. Something I notice a lot, and frankly, I hear it in records. You know what? I'm going to go open that door a little bit more to block out some of this. There, my fancy fancy trick for blocking out weird lighting. Hello, Giovanni Lanza. Not enough people pay attention to bottom end, and sometimes I second guess myself and wonder if it's because I started my career and was trained at Criteria Studios in Miami in the mid-'70s. Those guys paid a ton of attention to getting their bottom end, and no matter what style of music they were working on. It just, To this day, I hear stuff that was recorded at Criteria after I left there, and I didn't even know for sure if it was recorded there, but I'll hear something and check it out and find out, yep, that was in fact recorded at Criteria. The whole studio with a bunch of different engineers and a bunch of different producers working there and different studios, yet Criteria recordings always had not the same kind of bottom end, but the attention paid to the bottom end was obvious to me. Where are the grips? Yeah, no grips here. Anyway, so thinking about bottom end, obviously it's different in depending on the kind of music that you're doing. You know, are you doing singer-songwriter stuff? Are you doing rock stuff? Are you doing dancey pop stuff? Are you doing jazz? But I think that because not a lot of people are bass players, they're so concerned about making sure their vocals are clear and discernible and not pitchy, or making sure that the guitar parts are really cool, or making sure that the layers of keyboards are really cool, that the bass is just kind of, you know, people make jokes about bass players and drummers. Sorry, JP, I know we're going to be stepping on your toes here. But they're often forgotten, and maybe they're not given enough credit because they're like, you know, this side man who's just there to be solid and be a solid, good side man or woman, as it were. But it's still important for any kind of music to pay attention to the bass. So I don't know that I could give you a lot of tips about how to make a great bass sound from a totally technical perspective. You know, like dancey pop stuff nowadays, from what I'm hearing, more people are layering to get bass sounds than are using equalizers and compressors. I mean, naturally on a stringed electric bass, compression and EQ, even things like, you know, what kind of bass is it? Which pickup are you using? What kind of strings are you using? How do you play? Has so much of it all starts at the source, you know? I know bass players that have a somewhat delicate touch. My friend Chocolate Perry that played on the CSNY stuff that I worked on and then ended up playing on, you know, myriad productions that I did personally in the years that followed that. He had huge, fat, powerful fingers and a really strong right hand. So the tone came out of his bass that way. You almost couldn't get a bad sound on that guy. You would have had to work at getting a bad sound on him. But let's go back to pop records today. You know, when I sit there and listen to him, go, okay, so that was a really good bass sound, was the Genesis. You know, a good bass guitar being played by a really good bass player, being engineered by a really good engineer. But if I listen really carefully, I go, oh, they've probably got 2 or 3 layers of synth bass added to it. Now, all that said, when I hear like some urban music where the bottom end, and this is beyond me, it's something that I've never really studied well, it's something that I don't know much about, quite frankly, but some urban music, some hip hop stuff just has, you know, these giant like subwoofer bass things going on, which I know is part and parcel to that genre. I don't know how to get that sound, but for pop, for rock, for country, jazz is its own thing. You know, a strong right hand, as JP is pointing out, digging into the strings, that, you know, he says, to me, that's the feel. Yes, it is, and it contributes a lot to the sound. Oh, somebody's talking about the Muscle Shoals bass sound. Hell yeah. Can't go wrong with that. Yeah, go back and listen to any records you can find engineered or recorded at Muscle Shoals. You know what? I've got to say, maybe it's because both of the studios were in the South, but Miami and Muscle Shoals actually had a lot of things in common, great bottom end being one of them. So anyway, I just want to say, pay attention to bottom end, and you can have the greatest bass sound in the world, but if your kick drum is not complementary to the bass sound and the levels aren't like perfectly matched, and I don't mean matched in volume, but perfectly blended. You can even take like a B plus, a semi-mediocre bass sound, and just by having the right kick drum added to that bass sound in just the right amount, it makes a world of difference. And I implore you, after you do your mix, even if you know your room, even if it's just a home studio with a couple of like small KRKs, your room is not acoustically perfect, which hardly anybody's is anymore, and that's okay. Take your mixes out of there and listen to the bottom end. And listen to the bottom end at a friend's house, wear a mask. Listen to the bottom end in your car. Listen to the bottom end in headphones. Listen to the bottom end in earbuds. And of course, it's not going to sound the same in all those different scenarios, but listen to the relationship of the bottom end to everything else. And the bottom end just shouldn't be turned up so it kind of muffles and masks everything else. Again, it's got to be complementary. But, adding a little 2.5K to your bass will give you a little bit more of the sound of the fingers on the strings. Again, like which pickup are you using? Which strings are you using? There are some records that I insisted that people use flat wounds on because they just had a different sound, and I thought that they would sound really good on that particular song, and people are like, wow, you actually know what you're doing. Well, thank you. Nathan East, big fan of him. Anyway, so there you go. There's bottom end. Just check it. Don't forget it. Don't treat your bass part like a sideman or woman. Marcus Miller. Yeah, you guys are mentioning some great bass players. Carol K. Yep. Hello, Bob Gunnerfelt. Brad Gray's asking, direct a DI for the bass and Mike the bass amp or both. I personally, I've said this on the show many times, I could rarely get a bass sound that I truly loved, number one. Going back now and listening, like the bass sound on that Melanie Ballroom Streets record, I mean, it was like 35 years ago, and I listened to that and go, wow, I actually like the bass sound better than I did at the time that record came out. I'm trying to think of other stuff that I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, the bottom line is I would oftentimes mic a bass amp just to make the bass player happy, to give the bass player some attention. Like, look, dude, I'm working hard to make a great bass sound. And if I had the tracks, I would record the bass amp. The number of times that I actually combined the bass amp and the DI and got a sound that I went, wow, that sounds awesome, very rare. To me, the direct sound sounded better. And then you get into the weeds when you do stuff like throw one compressor on the direct and another compressor on the amp sound. You're going to get some phase problems, which can really kill the bottom end on certain notes. You're almost better off recording the bass amp with no compressor, using a direct or using a compressor on the direct signal. Let's see, what did I like? LA3As. I love those on guitars and basses. The DBX 160 actually sounded really good on the bass. Kick drum through a DBX 160 combined with a bass guitar going through a DBX 160 seemed to be a combination that worked out well. But again, it all depended on things like what's the genre, what's the style of the bass player, what they're playing, what was the pattern of the kick drum and the bass guitar, where did they sit in the song, what was the tempo, what was the octave. If somebody's playing, in a middle octave, it's going to sound completely and utterly different than it does in a lower octave. So there you go. Scanning. Is it very common to use the DI based? Yeah. If I had to guess, I would say that probably 60 to 80% of all engineers, and again, this is based on past experiences from a long time ago, but I've just never known anybody that just loves the bass sound. Ampeg bass cabinets, or bass amps period, tended to sound really good for live stuff, and I know that they were popular with bass players period. And like I said, to make the bass player, to give some love to the bass player, the often ignored bass player, I would mic a bass amp and do a DI, but frankly found that the DI always sounded better. And you know what? If you do the same and then bring anybody into the control room and just play the bass track and do an A-B between the direct and the amp, the vast majority of time, even total neophytes, people who don't know anything about engineering, are gonna pick the DI. It just sounds richer. And of course, with the bass amp, you get into the anomalies, or not anomalies, but the room, the effect of the room. The amount of distance that it takes a low E bass note, the waveform to be in the room. If you stick a mic right up on the grill of a bass amp, you're missing so much. But if you put it 6 feet away or 8 feet away, it's a whole different story. So, yeah, LA3A on bass. Carrozza's giving me a thumbs up on that, or exclamation points. I'm uncomfortably wired on caffeine, by the way, today, to the point where I feel a little weird and edgy. I was feeling a little droopy about half hour or so ago, so I made myself a rather strong iced coffee, and now I'm like, Universal Audio 6176, or Sansamp model RPM. I know a lot of people really like the 6176. I don't know that I've ever used one, frankly. I did hear, I think I told you this, a friend of mine in New York, whose ears I trust a lot, actually was watching the last show with Rob Shirelli on there when he gave away all kinds of software. And his, one of his EQs, I can't remember which EQ it was. Anyway, my friend got Rob's EQ and loved it. Said to me it was some of the best EQ he'd ever heard out of anything. 1176, which of course is a limiter that every major studio in the world has. I like them. I didn't love them as much as the LA3A. LA3As are more plug and play. It's basically, how much, what's the ratio, and what's the output level. There wasn't much you could screw up on it. Wow, Dean Crepane is in the house. Yo, Dino, how are you, buddy? Martin Gravel's got a vintage Ampeg. That's cool. Anyway, so there's my little, I don't know if you call it much of a lesson, but just don't forget to pay attention to the bass and the kick and the bass relationship. No matter what genre you're working in, no matter how simple or how complex your arrangement and your production are, don't forget the bass. All right, let's see. Something else that I've noticed in instrumental cues that I've heard from members, people who are almost getting it right but not quite there. It's like they've got their sounds together. They understand the basic structures. There is no one perfect structure for instrumental cues. There are several that seem to be popular. And basically, it's a lot of A section with maybe a little B section thrown in, kind of a bridgy section just to add a little variation, and then back to the A section. But the thing that people seem to be missing, that are really close but not quite nailing it yet, is they don't build enough forward momentum by adding new elements quickly enough. They will bring in, whatever they start out with. People seem to get the concept of starting out kind of skinny and then building it up, building it up, building it up, dropping it down, building it up, building it up, building it up, and then go for a big finish. I would say that people need to pay more attention to when they're bringing those other elements in. They're not bringing them in quickly enough. Some of my impetus for telling you that is that when editors sit down and audition stuff, they're just clicking on it going, no, no, no. Ooh, like that one. Let's try that against picture. So if you're going to stay with, the same complement of instruments for 8 bars or 16 bars up front, you might be waiting too long to bring that stuff in. I would say try adding new elements in 4 bars. Let's see, Brad Gray's got a question. Instrumental cue question. When the reference has vocals, how should you approach those sections? An instrumental melody that would have been voice or no melody to give it space. I actually I call it melody light. That's my own way of saying it, and that if you add back the melody that a vocal would do in full, it's going to sound like 101 strings doing the Beatles. It sounds cheesy, but no melody makes it sound like a rhythm track with the melody pulled out of it. So add some melody back to it. You got to give it some sense of melody, otherwise it's just chord changes over a rhythm section. So I hope that answers. Anyway, and when I talk about adding new elements, it might not be that you've got to add full-on parts as those elements. It might be, let's say that you've got a guitar part that's your main, rhythm instrument playing chords. It might be that you start out with just, 4 bars of that, but maybe the next 4 bars you layer in a synth that's playing the same thing as the guitar part, but it just adds a little more gravitas. Did I say that right? Gravitas. It just adds a little more balls to the guitar part, or it adds a little different texture. And it shouldn't be like, whoa, check that out. It should be, subtle enough that you don't really go, whoa, but it's in there. And that's always fun. I find as an engineer and a producer that finding that balance where you leave, in this case, let's talk about, the rhythm guitar part. Let's think of a Joe Walsh part. What if you doubled that up on a kind of gravelly synth doing along with it? Just saying, that gives it like, oh, something has changed. Something has been added. It's moving it forward. It's giving it more import, more gravitas. Most importantly, it's giving it some sense of this thing is building. It doesn't have to be super obvious. Greg Carrozza says, going up an octave. I actually threw that octave thing in here somewhere else in my notes. All right, I'll get to that in a minute. Let's see. You can create tension. I've noticed on some really good cues that I've heard recently that a really subtle and simple and I think really easy part to put in there, believe it or not, just simple string pads that are ascending. They tend to add tension. You could make it a minor, to add a different kind of tension, maybe a seventh or a minor seventh, I don't know. But just as simple, and you don't have to be great at doing strings, not with your plug-in, with your, you don't need to be masterful at laying in strings with all your articulations and stuff. I mean, obviously, you don't want it to be as simple as just, with the 30-foot bow. You should definitely pay attention to how the chord enters or the note enters. Does it sound like a real person playing it? But if it's just a simple ascending line that's down fairly low in the mix, but maybe in a somewhat higher octave on the strings, it adds tension to it. And it's not very hard to accomplish. So I hope I explained that well. And that makes sense to you guys. There you go. Watch Rick Beato. You'll learn so much about how to use chord structures in that way. It's free. Yep. Yeah, I actually watch some Rick Beato stuff. I probably watch 2 or 3 of his videos in any given month. I like him. Did he return my phone call or my email? No, he didn't. But yeah, I was even thinking about having him do a thing with me at the road rally. But if he's not going to return my email, but maybe he gets like a zillion emails. I don't know. Yeah, Brad Gray says to Ken Mesford, he'd be a good Taxi TV guest. Yes, he would, if he would actually respond. We should do a show called It's All About the Bass. That's a very original title. Anyway, so creating tension by adding string lines, ascending string lines. Literally just like whole notes. Got it? Okay. Here's something I wrote down. I added to this list one night in bed. I actually came downstairs to get my trusty spiral-bound notebook, but I was playing with Logic in bed, and labeling of your tracks, color coding and labeling. I know it's so easy when you're in the thick of it. And you're just dropping in a new guitar part to put down like guitar 1, guitar 2. But why not just say scratchy guitar, bell tone guitar, and give all your guitars, like maybe even go as deep as all your electric guitars are deep blue, your acoustic guitars are light blue. It just makes it easier when you're reaching for stuff. So there you go. That's my labeling and color coding advice. And do it as you work. When you go back later, you won't go back. That's the thing. I actually used to be pretty good about, back in the days of analog consoles, I would take that white tape, that you would lay it. They have like a little thing like a gutter above the faders where you could lay in this paper tape and scoot it through there and write stuff on. Sometimes we'd use white tape that we would stick in there. But I was pretty careful to label this stuff because there were times where, let's say I had a dental thing, I had to go get a root canal, but I wouldn't want to cancel a session with a client. So I would call the client and say, is it okay if Paul, my assistant engineer, works with you guys? I'm going to be 2 hours late to the session. Can Paul work with you on cleaning up tracks? Can Paul work with you? Ooh, a big hawk just flew by. Can Paul work with you guys on getting the vocals ready to go on XYZ song? It made life a lot easier for somebody that wasn't sitting at the console running those faders to just sit down and get stuff faster by having things like scratchy guitar, bell tone guitar, things like that, rather than guitar 1, guitar 2. Okay, let's talk a little bit about ear candy. Somebody asked in a recent episode of one of the Quarantinis, I believe, what is ear candy? The definition is so wide for that and so dependent on things like genre, instrumentation. Ear candy can be almost anything. It really can. It could be a little vocal part. It could be a guitar part. It could be a keyboard part. It's very genre dependent. See if I can read my writing. Okay. So here's some examples of ear candy that I just scribbled down in bed that night. Guitar chuckas, like, a Joe Walsh thing. Again, going back to, just at the end of a little section, it's pretty funny when I watch these later and I see myself trying to be Joe Walsh's guitar by doing but doing that is a form of ear candy, especially if it's a part. What if it's a guitar that hasn't been introduced in your song yet? And you just add that little, at the end of a line. Maybe it doesn't happen at the end of every time that line appears. Maybe it only happens the fourth time that line appears as you're heading into your pre-chorus, or maybe it's coming out of the pre-chorus going into the lift, into the chorus. Maybe you do it then. But just adding that cha-cha by itself is good. It's a step in the right direction. But again, what if you doubled it up and played the same exact part with a complementary synth part? What if you tried doing it an octave up or an octave down to give it some sort of different texture? What if one of them was more of a bell-like tone, one of them was a crunchier, amped tone? Just experiment with things like that, but it doesn't have to be something that you use all the time, because then it's not so much ear candy as it is part of the song in a bigger way, and it can become corny. I think that one of the secrets to doing ear candy is being very judicious in how much ear candy you put in there, because we all know too much candy will make you sick to your stomach. Remember that. Words to the wise: too much candy will make you sick to your stomach. It will make the people listening to your music sick to their stomachs as well. Body noises. Oh yeah, the sphinctophone. Sphinctophone is wonderful for ear candy. Something that I don't hear very much of, but I think could be used effectively, is ear candy, especially in the context of like dancey pop stuff. What about a wobble synth? Those have kind of come and gone, but just a little wobble. Just something that popped into my head. Crunchy claps. There's one clap sound. I don't know. Maybe it's an 808 clap. I don't know. You hear it everywhere and it's overused. But what if you took that clap sound and distorted it? What if you took a distorted guitar and doubled up on the clap with the guitar? What if you took an edgy synth that almost sounded like, like a low gravelly shaker, and added that to the crunchy claps and made them even crunchier? And just had it appear every now and then. That can be ear candy. But it's all about just using a little bit. Dubstep. Oh man, I woke up the dubstep people with that. But the wobbly synth doesn't have to be. It's like it got relegated to dubstep and got used like crazy in every dubstep song. But is there any reason you couldn't use it elsewhere? Just hints. Just a little bit. A harp gliss. Do I have a harp gliss? I do. There you go. Just, wow, Ken Mesford was using wobble synth before dubstep. Sweet. John Pearson says he accidentally ran a shaker through a distorted amp sim and it sounded so cool. Yeah. Why not? Think about, take a harp gliss and just mess with it. Don't even necessarily do it in the context of I'm working on a track today or tonight. Just one day sit down and spend a half hour with a harp gliss. What can you do to that? Could you run that through a distorted amp sim? Could you double it up with a crunchy guitar that's, doing the same glissando? Think outside the box, but again, use it judiciously, and don't make something that's so over the top or so loud or so predominant in your piece that it makes listeners go, what? You don't want them going, what? You don't want to distract them. You just want it to be subtle enough where it's like, that's the look you want. Is slightly noticeable, but not too noticeable. String stabs and horn stabs. I think those are underused elements that could be used as candy. And could you do cool stuff with those? Could you distort them? Could you put cool reverbs on them? think about on any of these things, actually. You know what? People often ask me when we talk about mixing about stereo everything, it's like acoustic guitar and stereo vocals. Somebody actually asked me that not long ago. Do you ever do vocals in stereo? Why? Background vocals, yeah. Lead vocal, hell no. But you could take percussive elements that you're treating like ear candy, and what if you did, a loopy delay where it's like just with a couple of bounces to it. Again, subtle. It's ear candy. It's not predominant. Echoes and delays, yes. Banjo stabs, hadn't thought about that one. Hell yeah, banjo is an underappreciated instrument. I agree. Oh, my next thing on here, are you using subtle delays on things like percussion? So there you go. The thing is, delays can be dangerous because when you put one of those repeating stereo delays, if it's on something that's not predominantly, constantly in the arrangement, it's too much. It grows old too quickly. If you should use it sparsely on something that just appears as a little accent or ear candy and doesn't show up all the time. Otherwise, it just muddies things up. But if you add that ear candy in an area of your arrangement that is somewhat empty, and it's got that repeating delay that goes bang, 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 that's it. Just 2 or 3 of those, that's enough. And then hopefully you're back into some other part of the arrangement that sounds, that's full enough on its own. And that ear candy is just a subtle little thing to fill a hole without making it too full. I hope I'm making sense. It's easier for me to demonstrate this stuff in a studio than it is to describe it with my words. And I made a note. Are you blending sounds like guitar and synths? Yeah, I mean, even drums. Blending sounds on drums. Remember I told you the Shirelli family and the Laskow family go see fireworks almost every year together, 4th of July. And not this past 4th of July because of COVID, but 2 4th of Julys ago, I said to Rob, every year when they have those really percussive fireworks, give you that boom in the chest, I can't believe we've never sampled that. So Rob actually held up his iPhone and got a good clean version of it and then took it home and sent me the clean version and sent me an affected version of it, just like with a bunch of bottom added to it and a bunch of top added to it and some sort of cool reverb on it. The thing sounds like a cannon. So what if you added that to a kick drum? What if you added... one of my favorite things I used to do was take drumsticks on a 4x8 sheet of plywood that was up on concrete blocks and have several people sit around. Sometimes we would take rubber gloves like you would use to wash the dishes and have 2 people with rubber gloves hitting in rhythm on that 4x8 sheet of plywood along with 2 other people hitting it with drumsticks in unison. And we got some great sounds. What about adding that to a kick drum? What about taking, I don't even know what the percussion instrument is called, but it's a thing that's like a little stick with a slappy thing on it. What about adding that to a snare drum? What about adding a shaker, sampling one of a shaker and adding that to the snare drum to add a little more sizzle to the snares. So there you go. I just gave you 44 minutes of little ideas that might make your production sound cooler. Maybe the most important thing I said today, though, was remembering to introduce new textures, new sounds, new elements sooner than later in your instrumental cues. They don't have to be big changes, just something that makes people feel the change, maybe more than actually notice it. All right, now I'm getting caught up on the chat. All right. Anyway, so any questions from you guys? We got 15 minutes left. Hopefully, I've given you a little stuff to think about. Vibraslap. Wasn't the Vibraslap the thing that had like a little ball and a little like carved out box, and you'd hit it and it'd go brrr, brrr. Sidechain, woo. Frankly, there are so many people that know so much more about sidechaining than I do. I knew sidechaining when you actually had to patch it in. What's the meaning of life? The meaning of life, I personally think, is looking back when you're on your deathbed and you know the end is very near, and you look back and go, I lived a full and productive life. For me, it would be, did I create a nice life for the people I love, my family? Um, I don't know what the meaning of life is. It's different for every person. It's like saying, what's your favorite color? Blue. What's your favorite shade of blue? This one or this one? Or the combination. I worked really hard on my wardrobe today, by the way. Yes, the next Quarantini is Friday. Tomorrow, I am working on Road Rally stuff. Actually, I want to check and see if our technical director. Damn, this guy's so hard to get on. You know what else? I've been emailing and calling and texting Carl Richardson, one of the Bee Gees producers, who's been a friend of mine since 1975. And I couldn't get his phone to answer. His voicemail box is full. I texted him, then I emailed him, and he wrote back and said, "Taxi! Exclamation point. Would love to chat. Give me a call. Here's my number." I had the number. I've called 5 times since then. I need to nail him down. If I can't get him nailed down, now I'm a little worried. What if he doesn't show up for the panel at the Road Rally? I could get my other friend, Don Gaiman, who is also a mentor and somebody I spent hundreds, if not maybe a few thousand hours in the studio with. Don Gaiman he did REM, he did Hootie and the Blowfish, he did John Mellencamp, he did Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I could get him. So if Carl and I can't coordinate, and I know Carl will reach out to me right after I book Don Gaiman. Andre Stepanian has a question. Which plugin do you use to control reverb tails dampening, especially for a stinger ending? I don't know, because I'm just now starting to play around with plugins, period. Never used them before in my life. I'm telling you, I'm so old school, we use moving blankets on the floor of an actual echo chamber to control the tail. And frankly, aren't those settings? Yeah, just use the settings that just pick a shorter reverb. I always start with like a 1.5 second plate or a 1.5 second chamber. That's just a good starting point. It's like, okay, I can hear it. Oh, I'd like a longer tail, or I need more of it, or I'd like a shorter tail. But 1.5 seconds seems to be like a good starting point. And then if you need something shorter, just shorten the tail in the plugin, I would think. Do you really need to use a gate or volume automation? Why don't you just shorten it? Run a kazoo through my distortion pedal. Yeah, you know what? How about a kazoo through distortion and wah-wah? That would be fun. Or Rosso says, just fade out the master. Yeah. Get the SSL, fader with the... I love that feature on my SSL. Just, whack the button, and it gave you a nice, even, linear fade. So easy. I think they've actually got that feature in some of the SSL plugins. Hello, Kirk Lewis. There's a name I've never seen in there before. Welcome to the Quarantini Happy Hour. Anyone here on Luna? Not to me. Just getting familiar with Logic. I've heard good things about Luna, though. Bonzo loves Luna. He carved it in a tree. Bonzo Heart Luna. Yeah, but it's not as easy in the digital world, so it doesn't sound cut off. Joni loves Chachi. Anyway, well, there we go. We've got 9 minutes. I could end the show now. I don't think I've ever ended a Quarantini before the full hour was up. Ooh, Neve summing and tape saturation in Luna. That's sweet. I've got to say, the other night I was using the classic equalizer that's in Logic that emulates an old Neve, and it did sound really, really good. What am I cooking for dinner? Actually, my wife is driving over the hill, as we say in LA, to go to the city. That's all LA terminology there. But yeah, she's going out to dinner, or going to an old girlfriend's house for dinner. And I'm actually thinking about going to pick up a slice of pizza, maybe two. Maybe even going to McDonald's. I don't know. Bottom line is, I've dropped a couple of pounds in the last week. My wife and I have been walking a lot at night. And I don't feel like cooking and cleaning up after myself. Our deal in the Laskow house is I do most of the cooking during the week. Monday through Thursday, my wife cooks Friday night dinners. I cook Sunday night dinners. I cook, she cleans. Tonight, I don't have her here to clean, so I think I'm going to go pick up some fast food. If I end now, the caffeine will drive me crazy. Ooh, garlic bread with the ghee. Oh. Have what we call pizza. That's so true. I've got to say, last time I was in Rome, I was there many years ago, with like 20 years ago, with my daughter who was 15-ish at the time. And we were walking back from somewhere, and we hit some plaza and saw a sign that said pizza. And I walked in and I said, can I get a slice with sausage on it? And the guy looked at me just like, you friggin' Americans. So he said no. And he just gave me a slice of plain cheese pizza. And that thing, I'm getting like the hair on the back of my neck is going up and my mouth is salivating, thinking about how good that pizza was. It was just amazing. Yeah, now like I want to hurry up and end the show and go get that pizza. Your wife's in San Diego. You're batching it. Wow. Dino, come over, man. We'll go out for pizza together. I've only eaten fast food, I believe, twice during this entire COVID experience. Question from Andre. Submitting instrumentals for Road Rally, do they have to be the ones that were already forwarded or any composition? No, I'd prefer that you do stuff that wasn't forwarded, frankly, because you've got a chance to get picked up here. I mean, you could create the age-old problem of, it got forwarded, I played it for a library panel, and then it got picked up by somebody on the panel, and then immediately after the road rally, the library it was forwarded to called up or emailed, said, we want it. Oh, anchovies. Oh, you guys are killing me. Which tip was worth the whole show and more. The pizza thing? What are you talking about? Oh, how short can we go when you say roughly 2 minutes for a cue? If it says roughly 2 minutes and it comes in, at I don't know, 10 seconds under 2 minutes, that's okay. If it's a few seconds over, that's okay. We just had this discussion today in our A&R meeting. Look, we do all we can. Most of these listings will say, between 90 seconds and 2.5 minutes. I'm just throwing that out there. And they'll say about, and we italicize the word about, and then we do comma, give or take. So, it doesn't have to be exactly 90 seconds. Could it be, 84 seconds? Could it be 97 seconds? Yeah. It's about, we're just trying to make the point. Don't send a 30-second cue when they're looking for something that's about 90 seconds. I hope that helps. Gopher jerky. Yeah, I should put a gopher in the smoker. Smoked gopher. They're hard to keep lit, those little suckers. Did I get an email about submissions for the road rally? Why, yes, you did. If you remember, we only sent it to members. And I believe it went out yesterday. And I got to tell you, those listings, as short and concise as they are, were really hard to write. And we ran up against problems. Like the last panel is the happy ending panel. That'll have 3 or 4 people on it. And, we try and mix it up a little bit. We'll have Michael Lloyd on it because he's on it every year. And we always have Michael Lloyd do his inspiring little thing at the end of the road rally. Although I doubt that he'll be playing Twist and Shout, although you never know. We'll have Shirelli on it. So Michael Lloyd, believe it or not, he does a fair amount of music supervision. So he can cover record stuff. He's also a partner in Curb Records, and he can talk country, although I don't think he thinks he can speak about country as well as he probably can. So both he and Shirelli can talk about records. They can talk about film and TV stuff. I don't think Rob is incredibly well versed in instrumental cues, but he's really well versed in like songs that work in the context of advertising. And then Pedro Costa is going to be on that panel. He just doesn't know it yet. I thought I would include him because he can speak very articulately about cues, instrumental cues, and songs for film and TV placements. So I know those 3 guys, assuming they all say yes, but I'm sure they will. John Pearson says 10 seconds on either side is what he tries to do. Yeah, don't send 10-second long cues. Darren Moss just showing up now. Well, we've only got 2 minutes to hang out with you. Kristen Knight says, great show, amazing info. Thank you. You're welcome. I love doing the Quarantinis. Will our guests be able to watch the archives? Yes. The problem that we had was we like to alternate and play like instrumental cue and song. And is the song, a song that you're pitching to artists on major labels? Is it a song that you'd like to pitch for film and TV? So we had to run 2 different listings for the same panel. One is for songs and one is for instrumentals. That way we can build 2 playlists and we can alternate between them so that we get a fairly good balance of instrumentals versus songs. Darren Moss will watch this back. You're welcome, Martin. Do we have listings on reggae and dancehall music? We do. I'm going to be honest, not a tremendous amount, but we do. You know, if I had to say, like between reggae, dancehall, instrumentals, and songs, reggaeton. There are a few other variants. Yeah, you know, do we get a couple dozen a year? Yeah. Are you going to see it every week? Nope. Wow, Kristen Knight's making meatloaf for dinner. Oh yeah, don't forget, tonight is the vice presidential debate. Hopefully it's better than the last debate we all saw. Anyway, as I am prone to say at the end of the Quarantini happy hour, our time is up. I'm starving. I'm going to jump in my car and I'm going to go to a little place called Winner's Pizza. It's fairly close to our house, and I'm going to get a couple of fully loaded slices of pizza, and I am going to love every minute of it. And I think the VP debates start at 6 o'clock tonight. So that's it. See you guys on Friday. I would really appreciate it if you guys would go into the comments after this is up on YouTube and post any thoughts you had about today's show. Also, please post some ideas, some starter ideas that we can talk about on Friday's Quarantini. Remember, no Quarantini happy hour tomorrow, but there will be one on Friday. I actually had a good idea for Monday's regular Taxi TV, and I didn't write it down. Now I lost it. I hope it comes back. That's it. See you guys. See you on Friday for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Bye-bye. Woohoo. Pizza, pizza. Debate. Frankly, I think I'm more into the pizza tonight. Should be an interesting debate, though.